Hi guys, before I get into the substance of this video, I wanted to make something very clear for people who seem to have a little bit of confusion around this particular passage of the Bible. And Jesus went out and departed from the temple, and his disciples came to him for to shew him the buildings of the temple. And Jesus said unto them, See ye not all these things? Verily I say unto you, there shall not be left here one stone upon another that shall not be thrown down. And as he sat upon the Mount of Olives, the disciples came unto him privately, saying, Tell us, when shall these things be? And what shall be the sign of thy coming and of the end of the world? And Jesus answered and said unto them, Take heed that no man deceive you. For many shall come in my name, saying, I am Christ, and shall deceive many. And ye shall hear of wars and rumours of wars. See that ye not be troubled, for all these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet. For nation shall rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom, and there shall be famines and pestilences, and earthquakes in divers places, and all these are the beginning of sorrows. Then shall they deliver you up to be afflicted, and shall kill you, and you shall be hated of all nations for my name's sake. And then shall many be offended, and shall betray one another, and shall hate one another. And many false prophets shall rise, and shall deceive many. And because iniquity shall abound, the love of many shall wax cold. But he that shall endure unto the end, and the same shall be saved. And this gospel of the kingdom shall be preached all of the world for a witness unto all nations, and then shall the end come. Now let's skip the abomination of desolation part and get to the return of the Son of Man, specifically from verse 29. So immediately after the tribulation of those days shall the sun be darkened, and the moon shall not give her light, and the stars shall fall from heaven, and the powers of the powers of the heavens shall be shaken. And then shall appear the sign of the Son of Man in heaven. And then shall all the tribes of earth mourn, and they shall see the Son of Man coming in the clouds of heaven with power and great glory. And he shall send his angels with a great sound of a trumpet, and they shall gather together his elect from the four winds, from one end of heaven to the other. And then the last part that I want to just read off is the be ready at any hour. But of that day and hour knoweth no man, no, not the angels of heaven, but my Father only. But as the days of Noah were, so shall also the coming of the Son of Man be. For as in the days that were before the flood, they were eating and drinking, marrying and giving in marriage, until the day that Noah entered into the ark, and knew not until the flood came and took them all away. So shall also the coming of the Son of Man be. Then shall two be in the field, the one shall be taken and the other left. Two women shall be grinding in the mill, the one shall be taken and the other left. So what I wanted to clarify by reading that point there, let's start from where I picked up the verse. Maybe not from verse 1, but let's have a look at it from, let's say, from the false Christ. So from verse 5. This part here, from verse 5, Matthew 24, verse 5, down to Matthew 24, verse 14. This, what Jesus is talking about, is the tribulation. Okay? This is what we are trying to figure out. When does the tribulation start? Now, the Bible doesn't say anything about us not being able to gain wisdom regarding the tribulation. It specifically says, Matthew 24, verse 9, immediately after the tribulation of those days. So, for those of you who may think that the rapture comes before the tribulation, it doesn't. Immediately after the tribulation of those days. The tribulation, as I've mentioned, is what happens when Jesus is talking from verse 5, Matthew 24, verse 5, to Matthew 24, verse 14. That's the wars, the rumors of wars, the nations rising against nation, the kingdoms against kingdom, famines and pestilences, earthquakes in divers places, the beginning of sorrows, false prophets arising, many being offended, love waxing cold, so on and so forth. That is the tribulation. Now, for those of you out there who believe that we are false prophets, let me break down to you, or let Google break down to you, what a prophet is. A prophet is a person regarded as an inspired teacher or proclaimer of the will of God. I don't recall in any of my videos saying that I'm speaking on behalf of God, or that God has told me this, or that God has told me that. These, I have been very clear, these are interpretations, my interpretations. These are not, I've never said God has shown me this, or God has shown me that, or God has instructed me to tell someone this. That is what a prophet is. A prophet is someone who receives the word of God and is told to go forth and spread that word to the people. That's not what I am, and that's not what I'm doing. What I'm doing here is I'm trying to figure out when the tribulation is. And according to the Bible, we're not told that we're unable to figure out the tribulation. Specifically, Matthew 24, verse 36. But of that day and hour knoweth no man. No, not the angels of heaven, but my Father only. But as the days of Noah were, so shall the coming of the Son of Man be. It's specific here. The knoweth no day, the day and hour that no man knows, and not the angels, and not even Christ, but the Father only, is specifically referring to the coming of the Son of Man, the second coming. And we can know that here because when it comes to the end, it says immediately after the tribulation. So the tribulation comes first, which is what we're trying to figure out. The sun shall be darkened, and the moon shall not give her light. The stars shall fall from heaven, and the powers of the heavens shall be shaken. And then shall appear the sign of the Son of Man in heaven. And then when it gets down here to verse 31, it says, and he shall send his angels with a great sound of a trumpet, and they shall gather together his elect from the four winds, from one end of the heavens to the other. Now that is specifically, again, talking about the rapture. This is when Jesus returns and he collects his people from the four corners of the earth. That is not what we're trying to figure out. I would never try and figure out when this is going to occur, because we're told down here that no man knoweth the day or hour, and it's specifically referring to the day or hour of Jesus' return. But before Jesus returns, there is the tribulation, which we can know about because we are told to watch for the signs. We're told to watch for the signs in the sun, the moon, and the stars. And if you think that you can't predict when an event is going to happen, especially if it's a man-made event, because if it's a man-made event, then someone's going to be doing it. So someone knows when it's going to happen. And those people may just be inserting those kind of things into movies and into TV shows and things like that. Subliminal messaging, predictive programming. If you're able to tell a year in advance when the eclipse is going to be and where it's going to cover, exactly how long it's going to take to cross over, for example, the Great American Eclipse, that was forecast at least a year in advance. We knew that it was coming. We knew the day it was coming. We knew the hour it was coming. We knew exactly how long it would be. And that's perfectly predictable. What is not predictable is the return of God, is the return of Jesus when he comes back to the earth. So just to clear that up for you guys who seem to be confused between trying to figure out when the tribulation starts and trying to figure out when Jesus returns, they are two separate events. The tribulation is linked to the return of Christ, but we don't know when Christ is returning, but it doesn't say anything about us not knowing when the tribulation begins. So, just take that and digest it, let that stew around in your mind, because I don't like the misinterpretations that people take from the Bible. People are so quick to this verse. I've seen in my comment section so many times, but of that day or hour knoweth no man. You can't predict this and you can't predict that. I've never said I could. And I've never called myself a prophet. And those people out there calling people false prophets, you have to understand what the word means, and you have to understand its context. Proclaimer of the will of God. I challenge you to go back and look at the videos that we posted, and I don't think you'll hear us saying that we've ever said that this has come from God. We feel that God has given this to us, or given us this direction. These are our interpretations of what we see before us. Now, at the end of the day, if you're perfectly willing to, sit down and say, okay, everything's fine, nothing's going to happen, when it happens, that's your business. We were told to watch. We were told to look for the signs. We were told to be ready. And that's exactly what we're trying to do. We're trying to be ready for his coming by looking into the future to see when this tribulation event may happen. When these rumors and wars of, I think that's the time we're in now, the rumors and wars of, rumors of war. I think that's where we are now. But we've got earthquakes in diverse places, and that is occurring now. Nations rise against nations, that is occurring now. So I don't think it's beyond the realms of possibility to look into it and see try and figure out if something's going to happen on a specific date, especially if things are looking more and more likely. But one thing we don't try and do is predict the rapture, which is the one thing in the Bible we're told we cannot do. So everything else is possible. But that one thing, the rapture, is not possible to predict, and we don't try to. Just want to make that clear in the very beginning of the video, just in case you can't be bothered to watch the entire video and still end up posting a comment about no man knoweth the hour or time. If I see any comments like that after I've said all of this, you'll just be deleted. That's I think that's fair. So, good old rant there. Get it out of my system. Now I just want to show you where we are in the world at the moment. So, North Korea appears to be furious about the US drills that are going on, that are scheduled to take place from tomorrow. The operation is called Vigilant Ace, and as I've mentioned, it involves 230 aircraft, over 12,000 US personnel, plus South Korean personnel, and who knows what else is going on at the same time. But North Korea claims they're on the brink of nuclear war after the US and South Korea scrambled stealth fighter jets, to carry out a mock attack on nuclear missile targets, the state media revealed. That's the KCNA. So the KCNA has branded the US and South Korea as foolish and said the latest staged attack on their regime could lead to a nuclear war at any moment. The Kim Jong-un mouthpiece said more than 230 fighters, including the ultra-modern stealth fighters F-22 Raptor, F-35A, F-35B, and over tens of thousands of troops, including 12,000 US troops, are to be involved in the drill. Such a drill is a dangerous provocation, as it is driving the tension on the Korean Peninsula to the brink of nuclear war. It is an open, all-out provocation against the DPRK, which may lead to a nuclear war at any moment. The US and South Korean puppet forces are so foolish as to run amok with such stealth fighters. The stealth fighters which the enemies boast so much of will not escape the fate of a tiger moth. Now that's going into, obviously, the North Korean ways of conveying things. You know, they don't exactly speak the same way we do. A lot of things are done through analogy. But then you go on to the next report, which is H.R. McMaster saying that Kim is getting closer, and that's talking about the ability to strike the US homeland. Although some people believe they're already there and have been there for a while, while others believe they still have like a year to go before they can do that. Many conflicting reports, but one consistent factor is they are getting better every time they launch a missile. Every time they do a nuclear test, they're getting better at it. So there's not much time left, is what they're saying, is what H.R. McMaster is saying. Just to get into the main part of the story, President Trump's National Security Advisor said on Saturday that the war with North Korea increases in possibility every day, while the problem with the Hermit Kingdom remains unsolved. I just wanted to bring that to your attention. This is H.R. McMaster, is a highly placed official in the US government, so he'd be in a position to know. He's also, he's the military guy, so he's going to know that we're getting closer and closer. It's not getting any better. You understand? So then we have Russia saying to the US that North Korea will not back down. North Korea will not back down from building its nuclear arsenal, and any attempts to force Kim Jong-un would be like playing with fire. So Russia is also warning you. Then you've got China. China is snapping at the US over pushing Beijing to cut off North Korea. So to stop oil going in there, to completely stop trade and all that kind of stuff. And what they've said is China has tried its best. The editorial in Global Times, a state-run media outlet, read, "The Global Times, while not run by Chinese Communist Party officials, is heavily censored, and its editorials typically represent the country's official position with little deviation. China has done what it can for the US," read the editorial, which blamed the nuclear crisis on escalating hostility between Pyongyang and Washington. The US maintains that its military presence in South Korea and Japan is at the request of the host nations and a totally legal response to North Korea's illegal nuclear and missile testing. North Korea and now China have both accused the US of escalating tensions with its military presence. So you've got H.R. McMaster saying things are getting closer, things could kick off at any moment. Then you've got Russia saying that North Korea will not give up its nuclear arms, and the tensions are extremely high. That's why Russia put their industry on 24-hour, 24/7, war notice. Basically, China have done the same. I'll get to that. The next point, as I've already mentioned, is Lindsey Graham And I played a video that he did an interview on CNN, and his wording was extremely ominous in respect to something potentially happening in a short space of time. And he's saying that we're headed for war if things don't change. And I don't think they are going to change. As I said, it's like a stalemate. Korea wants nuclear weapons. America doesn't want them to have nuclear weapons. At the end of the day, how are you going to stop them unless you invade? Because diplomacy hasn't worked. Hasn't worked, and I don't think it is going to work unless North Korea get to a point where they're just like, okay, now we've got our nuclear weapons. What do you want to offer us? And that's all I can really see there. But it says here, if we have to go to war to stop this, we will. So they're quite content to use the military option if they have to, and it seems like it's being pushed in that direction. There's not much emphasis on diplomacy. You've got Donald Trump. You know, he said to Rex Tillerson, well, didn't say to him, he said it through Twitter, because that seems to be the way Donald Trump communicates. Said to him, it's a waste of time, diplomacy. And that was a couple of months ago. That was before we even got to this stage. So can you imagine what he's probably thinking now? I don't think that Donald Trump really supports the idea of diplomacy. I think he supports the idea of authoritarianism and dictatorship, in the sense that if I tell you something, then you do. And unfortunately, that's not how democracies work. But, you know, he tried it anyway. His latest response to the missile test that they did on the 28th or 29th, depending where you were in the world, is we will take care of it. It's a very short, to the point statement, but it leaves open a lot of possibilities. And then you've got Japan. Japan is preparing for another nuclear, well, they're preparing emergency drills, and this is like just after North Korea launched its latest missile. So the city of Hokuyo in western Japan on Friday conducted a drill to prepare for another possible North Korean ballistic missile launch, 2 days after Pyongyang conducted a test that alarmed surrounding countries in the US. The missile was reportedly fired. Please stay inside your building or evacuate to the basement, stated a warning from the satellite-based J Alert system that appeared on cell phones in the morning, according to the Japan Times. And the warning caused the railway trains to make emergency stops and halted the local subway system, as well as 30 Nishi Nippon Railroad Co. trains. Vehicles suspended at the Akasuka, I think that's how you say it, subway station, resumed operation after a few minutes. So they're really going for the test there. They're really preparing for the fact that there could be another missile strike, or at least another missile test from North Korea. And as I've mentioned already, North Korea is already building more launch pads. So who knows what's to happen in the next few days. Next report. Hawaii. I've mentioned Hawaii several times. I feel like Hawaii is involved in this grand scheme of things. Maybe they'll get a nuclear attack. Maybe there'll be some sort of missile attack on them, or tsunami on the island. I really don't know. I don't even know if they're actually going to be involved. But I have a feeling that because they are preparing, excuse me, as much as they have, there may be something, a threat towards Hawaii at the same time. Hawaii tested a nuclear attack warning siren early Friday for the first time since the end of the Cold War, in response to the growing threat from North Korea's nuclear program. So there you go. You've got China, Japan, Hawaii, Russia, H. Helmut Master there. So I'm just going through the reports just to kind of show you where we are at the moment and how these different countries are reacting. China, I already mentioned this as well, has suspended North Korean flights and closes the main road between them. And really, the reason they say for stopping the flights between China and North Korea is because no one wants to go there. That could be true. That could be just the reason. It may not be financially viable, but at the same time, with everything that's going on, it also fits in nicely to, we want to take our civilians out of the path of any sort of potential conflict that may arise. And, it's just kind of reading between the lines, see what you can see. The last report I've got here is one from a while ago, but I wanted to bring it back up because of the Vigilant Eighth exercise that they've got going on at the moment with the 230 aircraft. North Korea warned in September, this was just after their last missile test before the one they did in November, was that they would shoot down any US bombers. And that's basically they're saying the whole world should clearly remember it was the US who first declared war on our country. We said this was after Donald Trump said that North Korea would be totally obliterated in the event of a war between the two countries. We will have every right to make countermeasures, including the right to shoot down United States strategic bombers, even when they are not inside the airspace border of our country. Now, you might think that is unlikely, and I feel it's unlikely, especially considering the fact that you've got 3 aircraft carriers over there and the amount of military personnel. That would be crazy. But then we don't know if Kim Jong-un is crazy. I don't even know if Donald Trump's crazy. Half the people in power are crazy. Crazy for power, crazy for money, and that drives them. But his statement added to the war of words between President Donald Trump and North Korean leader Kim Jong-un, and is the most specific threat yet in the most recent flare-up in tensions, which has included North Korean nuclear tests and flybys by American bombers. On Saturday, US jets flew the east coast of North Korea to show Pyongyang and the United States has military options. The White House flatly denied Monday that the president has declared war on Pyongyang, but National Security Advisor Lieutenant General John McMaster, speaking at a conference in Washington, said, "What we hope to do is to avoid war with them, but we cannot discount that possibility." Without going into detail about potential military plans for dealing with North Korea's growing ballistic missile capability or nuclear program, McMaster cautioned that there's not a precision strike that solves the problem. Just to get down to the bottom of it, where is it? Okay, 1 second. So I just wanted to read the last part of it, just in case there's people out there who really doubt that North Korea would do that. The last time North Korea fired on a US aircraft was in 1994, when the North shot down a US Army helicopter, killing one of the pilots and capturing the other. The surviving pilot, who was eventually released, later said he was abused by his captors and forced to sign a confession that he had crossed into North Korean territory. The Americans insisted that the helicopter was flying in the demilitarized zone. So they have done it before. They have shot down a US aircraft before. It was a long time ago in 1994. So I just wanted to point out, just in case you really don't believe that North Korea would ever do that, they have done it before. Whether they do it again is a different question. But there is precedent there. They have done it before. So that's my video, guys. I just wanted to kind of catch you up on, the little intricate details going on in different countries that are pointing towards a major conflict on the Korean Peninsula. That's not to even include the major conflict that is slowly brewing in the Middle East. And as I said at the beginning of the video, this is not prophesying. This is not talking about the rapture. This is not trying to be clever or get views. This is just to warn people, to try and save lives, try and let people understand that what we're shown in the mainstream media is not everything. We're shown some things, but we're not shown everything. And although these reports come from media outlets, they're not most of them are not the mainstream ones. They're the ones that, post things online and stuff like that. And in a lot of those cases, we get more information coming to us because the mainstream media, though they are a business, so with their views, they get money and their adverts and stuff like that. At the same time, they have a responsibility not to instill fear, I guess, if that's what you want to call it. I don't see it as instilling fear. I see it as revealing the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So people can take all the information and make an informed decision on what they've seen, what they've heard. Because at the end of the day, I don't think any of us are going to be flying over to North Korea to get the news firsthand. I don't think many of us will be flying to a war zone to find out what's going on, to get that information firsthand either. So we're left with the internet, powerful tool. I thank God for it, because without it, we would be unable to form these kinds of opinions based on all the information that we're able to grasp. So good morning, good afternoon, good night. I hope that this day goes without anything happening. But considering everything else that's going on, it wouldn't be out of the realms of possibility for something to happen today. Obviously, each day seems like a normal day until something happens, and we don't know when it's going to happen, but we can warn people of potential days where things may happen, just so that you're more aware.